Members, it's the appointed time, and we've formed a quorum. Confirmation of minutes, item 1. And the second item is information paper issued since last meeting. Mr. Frankie YICK has sent in a letter. If members don't have any particular comments, then let's go to item 3, date of next meeting, and items for discussion. And that is the 9th of December, 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We've got the list of outstanding items for discussion. The clerk has issued a list of outstanding items for discussion, a list of follow-up actions. And I can tell you that the Vice Chairman and myself and the Secretary for Food and Health, and we held a meeting on the 23rd of October, an informal meeting, and we discussed the work plan for next year. And the list of outstanding items has been revised after that meeting. Now, after that meeting on the 23rd of October, Mr. Lee agreed that she prefers not to include in the list the item of problems of operating environment of hawker stores and fresh food wholesale stores in wholesale markets, as she raised on the 9th of October. So the next meeting, as I said, will be held on the 9th of December, 2:30 p.m. The government has proposed 3 items. A is strategy adopted by the government in tackling the issue of stray cattle. B, supply chain of powdered formula. And C, implementation of the pesticide residues in food regulation, CAP 132 CM. So these are the 3 proposed items. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Chairman. I want to raise one item. Please discuss with the administration to see if the item can be discussed in the next meeting. If that can't be done, please provide us with a paper, and that is a topic on dengue fever. The Secretary said that there have been more cases recently, and it will become an epidemic disease very soon. So what are the preventive measures being taken? What is the progress? So, Chairman, can you discuss with the administration? What is the date today? Well, for next week, next Monday, the Health Services Panel, that meeting, the topic would be discussed there. You can go to attend that meeting. And Mr. Joseph Lee has in fact written to all members inviting them to attend that meeting. So is that all right? Dr. Helena Wong. Chairman, I would like to ask a question about the imported vegetables from the mainland, the level of pesticide residues exceeding limits. We've asked the administration where these vegetables come from, and actually the exceedance level is rather high. So, Chairman, can you consider to invite the FEHD and also CFS to discuss with us the tracing of those vegetables, and also whether there are any flaws in border inspections procedures? Is it the case that many vehicles pass by without their goods being properly checked at the border? Well, I think the proposed item C for the next meeting, that is also on the pesticide residues in food regulation. So that's for next month, the next meeting. Item C. Can the FEHD be invited to talk about specifically what are they doing in relation to vehicles at the border? So I'll ask the clerk to take it up with the FEHD. Perhaps someone from Customs should also be invited to the meeting. So if members don't have any further questions about the agenda for next meeting, I would like to ask you, well, after 4:30 p.m. there are always other meetings, so we probably couldn't finish all the items by 4:30 p.m. Now, as on the issue of stray cattle, Ms. Claudia Mo and also some other members have met with the relevant groups concerned about stray cattle, and they've met with these groups. So in the next meetings, do we still have to invite these groups to give us their views? Actually, they've been here to tell us what they think about it, because we are having 3 items for the next meeting, and Dr. Helena Wong wants to speak specifically on item C2. Now, if we think we've done enough to hear the views of the concerned groups, and we don't have to ask them to come at the next meeting. But then if you say that we have to listen to their views, well, perhaps we have to arrange a special meeting, or we have to advance the meeting by half an hour. When actually the complaints division has laid out all the views given to us already. Who else participated in the meeting? Mr. Ng Leung Sing, Dr. Helena Wong? Yes, Dr. Helena Wong. I did participate in that meeting, and the government has just distributed the consultant's report. And I think it's we must ask someone from the administration to explain the consultant report before we know the way forward, because they are proposing swapping the cattle in Lantau with some other places. Well, I don't mind keeping the item there, but if we are going to hold a public hearing, the meeting will take longer, and I have a harder time in controlling the time. If you think that you know about the problems and you don't need a public hearing, then for this item, we will just ask the administration to talk and discuss about the report and how we should follow up on the issues raised. Ms. Claudia Mo, we have set the items for discussion on the 9th of December. Unless we have exceptional reasons, I would suggest that the agenda not be changed. Well, we might have heard their views in private, but then public hearings is altogether a different thing, because their views will be put on record and so on. And if we need it, we may extend the meeting for half an hour, hold it, say, half an hour earlier. Yes, I'm not saying that we should change it, but then I'm just afraid we don't have enough time for a public hearing. Can we just shorten the time given to the public hearing? How many groups will be coming up to express their views? Well, you shouldn't ask me. Now, if we say we want to shorten the public hearing period, then if we've got, say, 50 groups coming over, even if we give them 1 minute each, then that won't be any good. Well, since you raised this item, you may have a rough idea of how many groups there are. I would say 5 groups. Chairman, you know that the group has branches and subgroups, sub-concern groups. Well, you still want the public hearing to be held, yes, even if we've got the report written out and also 6 to 7 members met with them already. Yes, I want that to still be done, the public hearing. Well, can we advance the meeting by half an hour, starting from 2 p.m.? Those who are present, is it okay to you? Well, actually, we've started the meeting 7 minutes late today already. We need 8 members to form a quorum. So for next meeting, let's start the meeting earlier at 2 p.m. Don't complain if there are too many groups, and I will be giving them a very short speaking time. Anyway, we will invite them to the next meeting, and we'll start the meeting at 2 p.m. All right? Yes, please invite the administration team in. Sorry, I'm not very familiar with the procedure. Dr. N. Chang, are we still on the items to be discussed? Yes, just now, but not now. We are now asking the administration team to come in for the next item. Well, item 12 has to do with the proposed legislation for the election of elected members to the Veterinary Surgeons Board of Hong Kong. Is the timing still valid? Second quarter of 2015. Yes, that's the arrangement for the time being. Well, we met with them together with the vice chairman, and they are still working on something. The clerk, the chairman, and the vice chairman have met with them to see how the agenda items should be arranged for the coming year. Item 4, and that is the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department refuse collection point within a residential development at Fuk Wa Street, Fuk Wing Street, Camp Street site, Shamshuipo, Kowloon. So that's agenda item should last till 3:05 p.m. Now this is a funding proposal, a financial proposal. So I must remind members that according to ROP 83A, there is a requirement on declaration of interest. According to ROP 83A, if the member has direct or indirect pecuniary interest in a certain matter, he should not move a motion or speak on the subject unless he declares the nature of that interest. So I would like to remind members that if a member has direct or indirect pecuniary interest on the matter on hand, he must declare the nature of that interest before he speaks. All other members have been invited to this meeting and join the discussion of this this item, which has to do with a financial proposal. Under Secretary, do you want to take us through the proposal?
Thank you. Now, we hope that members will support that there will be a reprovisioning of the refuse collection point at the Fuk Wa Street, Fuk Wing Street, Camp Street site. Now, at the end of this month and in early December, we hope to propose this item to the Public Works Subcommittee and the Finance Committee for vetting. The government has adopted a multi-pronged approach to provide more residential land, and one of the approaches is to change government institution or committee land for residential use. And this site is a suitable target, and it's right now a temporary refuse collection point, and it serves Camp Street, and there are tenement buildings nearby. The buildings do not have refuse collection facilities, and so there is a certain demand, and there are no suitable reprovisioning sites. So we need to have a permanent RCP reprovisioned in situ. Otherwise, the residents will have to discard their refuse far away, and this will be inconvenient for them, and the other RCPs will come under a lot of pressure. And the government has considered design arrangements, and there will be measures so that the residents will support the measure. And in January 2013, the Planning Department has changed the land use. In regard to that, had a discussion at the Shamshuipo District Council, and the government proposes that the temporary RCP site and also they will be joined with the neighboring site, and there will be a larger site as a result, and there will be a number of measures to reduce the nuisance to the residents, so the district council is not against this proposal. Now, the permanent RCP will have an area of about 1,220 square meters, and this will provide similar facilities as the temporary RCP right now. And the government requests that the future developer will be responsible for the design of the RCP and construction, and it will be turned over to the FEHD after it's completed for management. Now, the funding proposal, if it's passed in December this year, the construction works will be completed in 2019. So we hope that members will support the proposal. Now, only two members have raised their hands. Now, this item is to last till 3:05. Now, we started the meeting a bit late. And there are meetings in this room after 4:30. So 4 minutes each to start with. Anne Chang, Helena Wong, and Claudia Mo. Ms. Chang. Now, I'm reminded that in the past there are similar problems in our district. Now, it's a private building, and after it's completed, rebuilt, and it's sold to somebody, and there is a large refuse collection point downstairs. It serves the entire area, and the deed of mutual covenant relates, of course, to the residents of the whole building, but the RCP is not known who it belongs to, and how does one pay the management fee. Now, right now, at Fuk Wa Street, Shunning Road, at LegCo Garden, now the residents are very unhappy with this situation. Perhaps the administration can tell us about the future arrangement. Now, how to sort out the respective responsibilities. Yes, it's true that there are previous cases for historical reasons. Now there are vehicles coming in and out, so there's an issue of who pays more with regard to management fees. Now, in this case, it's very clear the RCP will not overlap with the public areas. So if there is maintenance works for the RCP, the government will be responsible for that, and the management fee, we pay whatever share that the government is responsible for. So the previous problems do not apply in this case. Ms. Chen, I think we must get this clear, because a part of it is the RCP. Now, the ownership, that part belongs to the government, and the units upstairs are privately owned. So we have to be clear on that. It's quite complex. Now, in the future, for instance, at LegCo Garden, I don't know whether you can help and follow up to see how to resolve the problems that the residents felt strongly about. Now, well, there are two issues. First, there are some public areas. How does one share the management fees? And secondly, there are some drains that are shared. So how does one resolve the maintenance problem? So all these issues are being handled, and we have learned from previous experience. In this case, for instance, our service vehicles will take up only our own space and not the public areas of the building. There is no overlap, and the drains are also quite clearly delineated. Our drains serve us only and do not overlap with the public drains of the building. So the responsibilities are clear. Thank you. Next, Helena Wong. Now, Chairman. Now, I have some views about this item. Now, in the Home Affairs relevant committee, we also argued about the case in Yamate. Now, the street sleepers were treated as refuse, and now is it that C.Y. Leung has such a large shortage of land that he now even lays his hands on refuse collection points? The upper floors will be used for private residential units, and there's RCP downstairs, so you create more problems. Now you ask people to live on top of an RCP. Now that is really unreasonable. How do you do it? You plan to turn all RCPs into residential buildings? Now the government hopes to use well the land that's already developed to increase the land supply in the short, medium and longer term. And when we discussed with the district council, we undertook to implement a series of measures to reduce the nuisance to the residents to a minimum. Now, the entrance to the RCP will not be within the development, but it will be on the side of Fuk Wa Street, right on the street front. It will be far away from the entrances used by the residents, and there will also be modern air filtering facilities at the RCP. So the untreated air will not make its way to the public. Sorry to interrupt. Does the government intend to turn the land under management by FEHD for RCPs all into residential buildings? Is that a policy, Under Secretary? Now, I'll ask the Deputy Secretary to explain. Now, I believe it's a standing policy. Now, there are not many cases of RCPs within residential buildings. I think there are 10 odd. Actually, we have well over RCPs, hundreds of CPs. So it depends on whether the situation is appropriate for such use. Now it's a temporary RCP, and in the future we need also an RCP, and there's also an urgent demand for residential land, and we feel that in this case the two can be combined. So that's our recommendation. So it depends on the site. It's not a general statement. Now I am objecting to this item because it combines residential use with RCP. Next, Claudia Mo. Of course, we understand that Shamshuipo is densely populated. If there's no RCP there, then where do we place the RCPs? Now, but you are combining residential use with RCP, and it doesn't seem right. And if you look at northeastern New Territories, the government wants to demolish a whole village, but the government doesn't want to touch the golf course. Now, of course, you keep saying that you can't compare various cases, but you are not talking to us about the design. You have already gone past that. You are talking about the proposal to the Finance Committee, and it's $55 million. And Chairman, you will be responsible for the Finance Committee too. And we understand if it's a temporary arrangement, but you are saying it's permanent. So it seems that it doesn't really hold water. Now you say that the district council is not against it in principle. That means they have reservations and they demand certain conditions. Now, what did they say to you? Now the hostel for the homeless, I'm sure they have very strong views too against that. Now, the people have very strong views about that too. Now, and your costs, are they realistic? Well, I'll answer the first question, and then on the cost, perhaps the FEHD colleagues can supplement. Now, on the RCP itself, it's already at this site at Fuk Wa Street, Fuk Wing Street, and Kam Street. It's a temporary RCP, and the Development Bureau, when it looks for sites, the district council members suggested such an arrangement. Now, since we need more land, the temporary RCP can be turned into a permanent one. The location will be slightly shifted so that the entrance will be completely separated from the entrance to the future residential building. So are you saying, Madam Undersecretary, that the District Council is unconditionally in support? Undersecretary? Perhaps I can say that in principle the District Council doesn't object to the works, but they have some requests. For instance, the document in paragraph 3 mentioned this, and perhaps I can touch upon this. Firstly, the District Council hopes that there will be adequate measures to reduce the nuisance to the environment, and they hope that there will be space to improve future facilities. And thirdly, they hope that the deed of mutual covenant will have clear delineations, and the entrance to the permanent RCP should be separate from the entrance to the residential development, and the progress report should be reported to the district council as well.
And we undertook the following. For example, the entrance of the RCP should be far away from residential development, and for the deed of mutual covenant, there will be clear delineation of the housing development, the RCP, and the vehicular access, entrance of the RCP, and also the sewage system for far water will be totally separate from the residential development. And we would also be installing an air filter system within the RCP to minimize the odor problem. Fifth, in the design operation of the RCP, they will be meeting with the environmental requirements in the Hong Kong Planning and Standards and Guidelines, and we will make appropriate reports to the District Council as needed. So we will be acceding to the requests of the District Council. Ms. Mo, do you support this paper? I'm still thinking about it. I will be asking you again. I'm just afraid that you will leave the room soon before I make a conclusion. Dr. Enjan, do you support this paper? Yes, I do support it. You don't have to go into the details. I will have to let the administration know whether they can take it forward to the PWSC and the FC. I just want to make it count. Now, there are 2 other members who wish to speak. Well, the item has to last until 3:05. Mr. Raymond Wong, Mr. Raymond Chen. 4 minutes, including answers and questions. Mr. Raymond Wong. You may say, I support in principle, I support it with conditions. The district council stands is that considering that the government will implement measures to minimize the nuisance, it will not object in principle to the proposal. So that's it. When we discuss similar items in the panel, the first consideration is that the RCP is whether it poses unacceptable nuisance to the residents. If that is not the case, then I think we have to go by it. And some members said that, well, it is within a residential development, but where else can it be located? If there is a separate access, then that's acceptable. Well, actually, we are still worried. Even if there is an independent access, and there are still problems. So you have to add in a lot of facilities like water scrubbing system, RCV exhaust extraction systems, and so on. The aim is to minimize the odor problem and to minimize the nuisance caused to residents there. I think the paper is not very clear in relation to all these facilities. So I suggest that before you take the proposal to the FC, give us more information on the concrete measures and facilities. And Mr. Albert Ho said that if all the refuse collection facilities are lumped together, then there is a danger of Ebola virus spreading or other communicable diseases spreading around. Well, I think it all has to do with common sense. I would not be saying that you are speaking nonsense, but for Ebola, we must have a source before it can be spread. But the hygiene conditions at RCP is worse than the occupation areas. If you ask the question, which is dirtier, RCP or occupation area, which creates more nuisance, well, I think the answer is very clear. At the panel, I think we are duty-bound to go through the proposal. I'm sure that you will definitely go to the PWSC and the FC, but given the current situation of the FC, it means that the proposal will take a long time to be passed. Okay, let's turn to enclosure 1. Site plan. And it is now in a Class B site rather than a Class C site. I think that must have something to do with the price of that plot. I'm sure that the government is taking that into consideration as well, because it's near the MTR station and it is very costly, very pricey. And the entrances to the RCP are all at Fuk Wa Street. Can you consider setting back the RCP? Well, there is this yellow part on the plan. Without creating extra nuisance, perhaps we can consider increasing the development intensity of the residential development. A private developer will also be invited to develop the site, and the government must have to hand over the site. Now, if the proposal gets passed by the FC by December 2014, now if there is a delay, then the arrangement between the government and the property developer will be affected. Sorry, Mr. Raymond Wong, you've gone over time. I think in the land lease conditions, I don't know whether the administration has made the relevant arrangements. Mr. Raymond Wong, you've gone over time. You have to discuss with the private developer the arrangement and the contract. Well, if the proposal doesn't get passed by FC in December, what will you do? Well, you've gone over 4 minutes. Mr. Raymond Chan, 4 minutes for you too. I would like to talk to the Undersecretary on the financial arrangements. Paragraph 13, it is stated that the proposal will be passed to the FC in December, and also before that, the Public Works Subcommittee. Do you know how many outstanding items are there in the PWSC? Now, according to its own timetable, the construction works can be completed in 2019. That's unrealistic. You have to add in a footnote. I mean, is this an urgent project? Have you made a realistic assessment of the situation? Well, by which deadline must you get the approval of the Finance Committee, or the costs will go up substantially? You must give us some pressure. The target of 2019 is set based on the presumptions that you have, but these presumptions are not realistic. I would suggest that when the government drafted this paper, such papers, you must take a realistic approach, because you can't complete the work by 2019. Thank you, Mr. Chan. We have made some initial assessment on the situation. We have an internal timetable, and there may be circumstances beyond our control, but perhaps I defer to the Deputy Secretary to elaborate. Paragraph 13 says that if we get the approval from the FC in December, the project can be completed in 2019. So if there are delays, then the project completion time will also be delayed. We'll try our best. And as to the question raised by Mr. Rong on financial arrangements, our idea is that once we've got the funding, then we will sell off the land. So when the land is sold off, we already have the money to build the RCP. As far as I understand, the land will be sold or will be put on the land application list for next year. I think he has given a very clear reply. As long as the FC's approval is not obtained, then the land will not be put up for sale. Let me say this first. And you asked him if the proposed timetable is not adhered to, then will there be a rise in costs or what? The longer the delay, the greater the impact on the costs. Of course, I know that. I don't need you to give me an answer like that. I think that your timetable is totally meaningless. Well, it will be quite some time before you can get the proposal to the PWSC, not to mention FC. So do you have any sort of contingency arrangement? Now, if there is a delay in the FC's approval, there will be a delay in the project, of course. We have made some initial assessment too. Before we get the approval to build the RCP, the land sale will also be held backwards as a result. Well, I've heard them clearly. They can just wait. Let me try to wrap up, because the issue is not yours only. This is a temporary RCP. There is no pressing need to convert it. If you can only submit the proposal to PWSC same time next year, would you be changing or adjusting the figures and then submit the proposal again to this panel? What do you want to do? Yes, well, there may be a chance of doing that, because every time we take a proposal to the PWSC, only the most updated figures will be provided. So is it the case that you would come to us again before you go to PWSC? Yes. Mr. Raymond Wong, do you support this proposal going to PWSC? I think he hasn't given me a concrete or specific reply. Well, don't give me reasons. Just say yes or no, or you are thinking about it. Yes, all right. Mr. Raymond Chan? Not yes. Is it no? No, not yes, no, no. Miss Claudia Mo? I don't support it. Professor Joseph Lee? Support in principle. And Mr. Wong Kwok has stepped out. After you, do you support? Support, of course. Liberal Party, Chung Kok Pan has stepped out. I can't represent the Liberal Party. I don't know whether they object or support. What, like Emily Lau, I just try to build a firewall around myself, so I don't know the stance of Liberal Party. Anyway, let me wrap up. You undertook certain things in district council, and before you take the proposal to the PWSC, just list out all the undertakings you made. You've heard the views from the Liberal, the Civic Party, and so on, and some members supported and some members objected. Well, go back and think about it. But in any case, you have to come back to us because the figures are going to be changed, because I am afraid that you won't be able to take the proposal to BWSC in the next year. So much for this item. Let's move on to the next item. And that is item 5, and that is reprovisioning of the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department Sai Yi Street Environmental Hygiene Offices Vehicle Depot to Yanming Road, West Kowloon Reclamation Area. Please invite the administration team in. And all LegCo members have been invited to join the discussion of this item, which is also a financial proposal. So I would like to remind members of ROP 83A, and that is, if a member has a direct or indirect pecuniary interest on the matter, he should not move a motion or amendment or speak on that matter unless he has declared the nature of that interest. So I would like to remind members that if they have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the matter proposed, they should disclose the nature of that interest before they speak.
The Secretary, do you plan to brief us on the document? Now, this item will take us till 3:30. We were late on the last item by 10 minutes, and members were late. We didn't have a quorum initially, so we started late. So I remind members that the next meeting will start at 2 p.m. We have deputations. We need 8 members for a quorum. So at the meeting on 9th December, please. Chairman, I will be briefing you very quickly. Now, the objective is that we hope that members will provide the reprovisioning of a FEHD and Sai Yi Street Environmental Hygiene Officers Vehicle Depot at Yanming Road, West Kowloon Reclamation Area. Now, this is related to the earlier issues you discussed. Now we will go back and we'll go to the Public Works Committee and the Finance Committee in December. Now, of course, there might be delays, and right now it's 40 years old, and the premises. And so the reprovisioning now is due to a development need at Sai Yi Street and also for transportation purposes. So we have consulted the district council for a long time, and we've done a lot of work, and district councillors and area committee members made certain requests, and so we look at the whole Yau Chi-ming area for suitable sites, and eventually we picked this one. And meanwhile, we did a lot of consultation, and we handled a lot of we paid attention to the comments of the residents. These concerns are mainly about the impact on residences and on traffic, and we have made a lot of adjustments as a result. And eventually, in May this year, we consulted the Yau Chi-ming, the relevant committees, the steering committee, and had their support. And the area is near Shamshuipo as well, so at certain critical stages we went to the Food and Environmental Affairs committees of the district, Shamshuipo District Council, and the District Council is not against this proposal. And this is near the harbour front, and there has been also been consultation with the relevant body on harbourfront development, and so and they have no objection. So we hope to have members' support. Now on the scheduled completion dates, now this item. This matter was discussed earlier with regard to another item, so please take note of that date, but I cannot say to you whether the dates will eventually work out. And if the dates could not be achieved, of course, that might have an impact on the budget. Now, if the impact is not too big, and if the figures do change, we will provide documents to the committee. Are there conditions to the or restrictions to the support by the district council? I attended the Food and Environmental Hygiene Committee meeting of the district council. They gave a lot of comments. We accepted most of their comments, and at the time I and my colleagues responded to those comments. I don't feel that they had any conditions. We have 5 members going to speak. This will take us to 3:30. And also there's Miss Priscilla, Helena Wong. Anyone else? James Toh? You are already the 3rd on the list. So there are 7 members. I'll draw the list. So there are 7 members altogether. Now, this has often been discussed. So 3 minutes each. You haven't raised your hand? Okay, thank you. Sorry. So there are 6 members going to speak. You did raise your hand, but let's not discuss that issue now. The clerk was the one who checked the names there. So you're not going to speak. So there are 5 members. So 4 minutes each. We do not we don't have to repeat those issues already raised. Mr. Ren Wong. Now the administration said that 650 FEHD staff work here, but actually it's not a very busy office, and it's rather different in atmosphere from the hustle and bustle of Mong Kok. I often walk by now, so there are issues related to West Kowloon, and so this is a very complex issue, and so there are 4 ladies and a man, and that may be rather troublesome. Now the planning department completed a study of the area improvement plan now, and only now are they discussing the consolidated development. Now, why is it that the 2009 study didn't encompass this? Now, the district councils all wanted a public transport terminus to be located here. That has been a long time request. Now, the depot will be completed at a very late date, and now the departments are all working each on their own. Now you need them to work together. This is for development. It's a matter of principle. You merely dismantle this building and move elsewhere. And now actually this is very simple. You just adopt a D&B approach. Now the public transport terminals should be put on the market for developers to make design and build proposals, and you need to reprovision the new office building. Now it should be completed in 2017, and so everything else would be ready by 2018. So I support in principle the reprovisioning. Also, the Sai Street facility will only be completed in 2023. The public transport terminals will accommodate the light buses, and this will resolve this problem of streets on Mongkok being taken up by light buses waiting there. Now there's only one street now that's open, and the taxis dare not move in because they're all taken up by light buses. Now when this new PTT is completed, there will be no traffic congestion, even though there might be some occupation going on nearby. Next, James Toh. Now, as a LegCo member and a district councillor for that area, I'm against this document. Now, I agree that Sai Street should have been reprovisioned long ago. The choice of site is suspect. Now, why is it that we need to consult the Harbourfront Committee or Commission? Now, this is a site at the waterfront, harbourfront, and it's going to be used for refuse vehicles. I don't know what Mr. Siwa Leung will think when he hears this. This is a valuable site. It can be for other uses, and now it's used to park refuse vehicles. And there is an error in the government's thinking. Now, they think that there shouldn't be a refuse vehicle depot at Sai Street. It has to be moved elsewhere, so they have to find a site in Yau Chim Mong district to take its place. Now, the site doesn't have to be located at the same place as the offices for getting licenses and so on, because you merely park the vehicles there and wash them at this depot. So the depot should be far away from residences. Now, the Yau Chim Mong district councillors support the reprovisioning, but they think that the site is not ideal. Now, there's a site in Kwai Chung which was very suitable, but they rejected that because they said it will take, because they said 2 or 3 years later there may be some other engineering works there. But this is something that's quite close, and yet you have to save this site for something in the distant future. Now, why is it that the refuse vehicle depot has to be located at the same location as the licensing offices? The reason given is that this is the case at Sai Street right now. Now you can rent these premises for the licensing offices. You can rent them even though the rent's a bit expensive. Now, because you want to put them all together, you need a larger site. And you don't want the people who renew the licenses to travel far. So you find a suitable location which is next to the MTR station, and it's several tens of meters from the harbor front. It's a very valuable site for that purpose. Now, the district residents are not against this for no reason. Now, if you have looked far and wide for suitable sites for the refuse vehicles, such as spaces under flyovers, then people will not object if you have put in due effort. But you haven't done that, so the residents do not accept this. Now, I'm a LegCo member. This site is so valuable. If it's going to be depot for refuse vehicles, I think this is not worthwhile at all. The Secretary, you can respond later, perhaps because the time is used up. Ms. Dari Lee? Now, to move the FGHD offices at Sai Street away from BC area, this is worth supporting.
We have, DAB has made proposals, for example, similar proposals relocating the 3 government buildings in Wan Chai. And the old areas are congested and the government facility should be relocated to elsewhere. But the question is always, how do we find suitable locations? These are questions that we've been asking. Take Kowloon City and Yau Chi Mong as examples. We've been asking to relocate the funeral palace, but then so far no suitable site for relocation has been identified. So we've been dragging on our feet on this for a long time. And district councils are very concerned about this reprovisioning project, especially on the aspect of transport. The site is near to several schools, and nearby there is only one major trunk road leading to it. In terms of the traffic arrangements, can you say undertake that there are suitable traffic arrangements that people would not be affected in terms of transport? And if we are going to try to find another site, and I'm not sure whether that other site would be accepted by the residents there. So that's the question. Secretary response. We've heard views from the district and also the district councillors. They have given us a lot of views on how to mitigate the traffic impact. On aspects like the vehicular flow and so on. So we've made adjustments, so that's why we've been able to get the proposal past the district council. I would like to reiterate that there is a pressing need to make the space at Sai Street available. Second, with regard to the location picked, and actually we've been laying out the map among ourselves and to find suitable sites. And for the other sites identified, they all have their reasons, which are not suitable for the reprovisioning. And also, with regard to the transport arrangements, we've heard many views. Any follow-up? The FHD's office is relocated, but then in terms of transport, there is another department taking care of it. Would you undertake that? Based on the actual conditions, there will be suitable traffic arrangements in place to allay their worries. Ms. Yu. Chairman, we have conducted a TIA on this project covering impact on pedestrians, and the results show that with regard to the neighboring transport networks, taking into account the developments that would be completed and also the present project, the traffic network in the vicinity can be able to cope. So there will not be any major impact on the residents there and also the harbour front. I suggest that you keep a close contact with the district council. There may be objective data, but then they may not cover what's happening in reality. We will continue the dialogue with the DC. Dr. Priscilla Leung. Thank you, Chairman. In the last term, even when I talked to Donald Zhang, I have raised a similar suggestion before. I suggest not only the FAEHD facility be removed, but also the Water Supplies Department facility be relocated as well, so that a traffic hub can be built in that area. And perhaps the secretary might have to take it up with other departments as well. There is this facility of the WSD at Sai Yi Street, and it will be relocated to Western NT, but then the costs have gone up. So, with this as a big picture, we support the reprovisioning proposal. I have looked through your plans. You have presented the plans to the residents. You talked about traffic arrangements, RCV, and so on. I support the principle of relocating the facility from a busy area to a not so busy area. I think it is our responsibility to resolve problems like this. You have sent us also video footages, and a lot of residents have watched it. The situation is not as bad as what we imagined. Residents raised several points. One is safety. If so many RCVs are passing through the area and there are schools in the vicinity, you have to ensure that safety is upheld. And also, we are concerned about the cleanliness of the vehicles. The pictures show that it is a very clean facility, but then the residents who are going to be affected, they may still be worried, even if the RCVs are passing the roads there at non-peak hours. I think you have a lot of explanation to do with the residents, telling them that cleanliness and safety can be safeguarded. Actually, we went on site visits to RCPs, and there can be differences from one RCP to another. And the area is quite good in terms of its environment. So if you have received the mandate from us to go ahead with the project, we are worried that whether the objectives you set can be achieved. Also on the traffic arrangements, I participated in some residents' meetings, and they are concerned about the traffic arrangements, transport arrangements. So please follow up on these two fronts in the future. The District Council supports the proposal, and on the condition that the WSD facility will also be relocated. We heard recently that the costs in Kwai-ching of the land there has gone up, and then the project may not realize. So we hope that all these proposals can come to be realized in the end. Secretary, I undertake that we would follow up with the residents in this district on the progress of the project, and we want to achieve the work you mentioned. Business and professional sidelines, do you support this proposal? Dr. Helena Wong. Chairman, I support the relocation of the FEHD and WSD facilities and turn the area into a PTT. But Mr. James Toad raised his objection for the facility to be relocated to Wing Street, and we objected to the new location. I also objected to the proposal in the earlier item. In the last item, it is proposed that two pieces of land in Fuk Wa Street be merged, and there will be a private development project there, and then a permanent RCP will be built. And objected to this proposal. And that piece of land is 3,150 square feet in size. Can you consider relocating the vehicle depot to this plot in Shamshuipo, Fuk Wa Street, and you can solve two problems at one go? Of course, the land plot in Yaming Road is larger, some 8,000 square meters. But for this other site in Fuk Wa Street, you are having a private development project there. And can we use that site for building residential flats on the top, and then you relocate the vehicle depot there, which can accommodate 102 vehicles? Well, can you use that site in Shamshuipo to accommodate all these FEHD facilities in Sai Street? Can then the site at Yanmeng Road be sold off for private housing development? Secretary, this is a brand new idea just floated, and I can't respond instantly. We have explained clearly to the District Council that this is a problem related to, well, this is a problem or issue to be tackled by the Yau Chim-mong District. And so in principle, we have to resolve this issue within the Yau Chim-mong District. And Dr. Helena Wong can also propose sites in other districts as well. But then this is a technical question that I cannot respond promptly. In Yau Chim-mong District and also the Western constituency or Western Area Subcommittee, we have looked at all sorts of options, and we explained to them clearly why these other options are not feasible. Now, if the Secretary wishes to take the proposal to the PWSC, I hope that he can respond to my proposal. Of course, district councils have their own guidelines and criteria. But then you are the secretary. You should not be bound by the constraints related to the boundaries of the different district councils. And I think my proposal works. You've gone over time. Dr. N. Chang, you said that you won't speak, but then you have raised your hands. Well, I'll just take up 1 minute. I'll be very brief. Dr. Helena Wong has suggested swapping the uses of the two sites at Yanming Road and also the Fuk Wa Road plots, and i.e. the site at Shamshuipo can be used for parking, RCVs and so on. Well, I think this is not a very good idea, because the RCVs may pose danger to the residents in Shamshuipo. In Yanming Road, there are no residential developments nearby. There are just 2 schools. So I would like to ask the secretary, and some residents said that they are worried that would school children's safety be jeopardized? Can you arrange their RCVs to go to the depot when the children are not going to school or going off school? I think that can be done. Dr. Eleanor Wong said that we should not be bound by the geographical delineation of the district councils when we are considering our proposals. You must appreciate the fact that I can't really respond to your proposal raised just now. I understand what Dr. Zhang has said. Shamshuipo is a densely populated area, but around Yanming Road there are only schools and some residents. But because of this, we have to explain many times to the district councils how our proposal will not affect the traffic there. And if we are thinking about a densely populated area, I don't think the residents will agree to the building of a vehicle depot there. So I would say that this would not be feasible. Now, if you are raising all of a sudden a brand new idea, then it's impossible for me to respond instantly at the LegCo to your proposal.
Eleanor Wong, you have already exceeded your time. N. Chang, you have anything else more to say? Secretary? No. Apart from the Democratic Party, it seems that the other colleagues are in support. So we move to the next item. It's time to submit documents. What? Documents. What documents do they want to submit to PWSC? Because earlier at District Council, many members asked you whether it's for Yau Chin Mong or beyond Yau Chin Mong. They asked you to find sites there which are more remote, and you said that those sites were unsuitable or have already been reserved for other purposes. I hope you can tell us why not. Now, we have explained many times to District Council and members, and the proposal was passed at the District Council. Are you unwilling to provide the raw data just because the District Council has approved it? Mr. James Toes, please listen to me. You want him to provide a document. Now, if he doesn't provide that document at PWSC, then you can challenge him at PWSC. Now, you said you wouldn't support this, and you can ask him for the documents at PWSC. and he has offered an explanation. The district council has no problem with it. You can raise this at PWSC. We have finished on this item of agenda. Item number 6, Ms. Helena Wong. As I said, we have concluded this item of agenda. Wong Kok Heng, you raise your hand. I can't read what you have in mind. Now you were late, so this item has gone over time for 15 minutes already. Item number 6, update on the substandard lard incident and food safety issues of cooking oil. The administration team are invited to come in, and other LegCo members have been invited to join this discussion. The Secretariat has provided a background brief. That is CB2 218/14-15 (06). The Secretary, now we have about 35 minutes left. The Secretary, now it depends on what you wish. I just want this item to be finished by 4:30. Are you going to provide a briefing? If not, then I'll ask members to ask the question. So I'll try to provide a briefing. Yes. Now, at the September 25th meeting of this panel, we already provided a briefing. Now, the developments are not yet concluded concerning the Taiwanese lard incident. Now, there are two basic issues. Firstly, at the last meeting, members asked some questions concerning import and export figures, and it's provided in the document. Now, on the import and export figures on used cooking oils and flows, now members expressed a concern at the meeting on 25th of September. As a result of that concern, the customs and other officials followed up, and we have gotten the data on the flows of such imported oils. Now, on the for the category 1518 the import amount was 770,396 tons, and one company took up 83%, that is 6,121 tons. The remaining goods were predominantly from areas other than mainland China, and they were mainly used for the production of biodiesel. And because there is the value of such oils is high, and some of the oil is not clear where they went. Now, according to the customs, there were about 500 of such tons of such oil used locally for ink and printing ink. So it's mainly epoxy-stated soya oil, and so this kind of oil is used often as a plasticizer. Now, on the export figures for lard for consumption, now now we do not produce or manufacture such oil, and we have the customs has studied the records, and it finds that 4 exporters are involved. The Global Way Corporation is currently under police investigation, and for the other 3 exporters, they made some mistakes in the customs declaration. One declared it as under the wrong category, and for the other 2 exporters, they made a mistake, and so they took non-industrial oil and declared that as local exports. So the customs has informed them what's the correct declaration approach, and so that the manufacturers or exporters concerned are familiar with the correct method of categorization. Now, last time we already informed the panel on our measures to be taken, and members in particular were interested about the import and export figures. So I think this explanation is now adequate. Now on the we are discussing the details on legislation for strengthening regulation of safety of edible oil and recycling of used cooking oils. Now, Helen Wong and other members are going to speak, so I'll draw a line here, 4 minutes each. Wong Kwok Heng. Now, following up on the briefing, now there are 3 exporters. When they made export declarations, they made certain mistakes, and also in footnote 2 of the relevant documents, it seems that the customs figures on used oils and they differ slightly from that provided by the government. Now, the government says that the figures were for macroeconomic analysis and not for monitoring and tracing of the goods exports or the export of the oils. So I would like to ask the administration. Now the government says that in early next year it will consider amending the legislation. So I'd like to ask the Secretary, now will the legislation cover the import and export of used oils so that there is a tracing mechanism? And when you amend the legislation in future, if there's a tracing mechanism in the amendments, that will be helpful to the government for monitoring, and it will enhance the transparency for greater confidence by the public, and it will further ensure the health of the public. So can the Secretary respond, please? Now, there are 2 parts. Now, first, on imports and exports, we have decided that we will study an approach to regulate import and exports. People must provide information on the source. There must be official approval of a company that certifies the quality before the goods can be imported or exported. Now, as for wrong export declarations, now I think by administrative means we can ensure that the export companies will be able to fill in the export documents correctly, so that these misunderstandings will not occur in future. Chairman, on the second question, I think the Secretary's response leaves the impression that it doesn't really deal with the issue. Now, the truth is, it's not that they don't know how to fill out the forms, but it's because they don't consider it important, and the government's supervision and monitoring has been inadequate. There should be a tracing mechanism for the used oils. Can the Secretary supplement on that? Now, on used oils in Hong Kong, we are considering an approach. Now, the used oils generated in our restaurants, in future, they can only be recycled by approved recyclers, as approved by the Environmental Bureau. So records have to be kept so that we can trace how much used oils have been generated and to which recyclers they have been supplied to. Helena Wong. Now, after the first order from Center for Food Safety, you also issued a list of distributors and shops who use the Changguan oil, and you said that you want to respect the public's right to know, so you disclose the list for the purpose of monitoring the recovery of the oil. Now, after the orders number 2 and number 3 were issued, you did not issue a similar list. Is it because some of the businesses criticize you, and so you ignore the public's right to know and you don't issue such lists? Now, after the CFS order was issued, the 14 days have passed, and what was the handling satisfactory, and was the first list accurate? Yes, when we disclosed the list of downstream participants, it's to safeguard the food safety for the public, and it's also to ensure that we can recover the problem oils and fats. Now, since the Changguan lard incident, the matter has been evolving all the time in Taiwan, and new developments are still emerging, and as a result, we need to consider whether we have access to all the relevant information from Taiwan so that we can stay one step ahead on the recovery.
Therefore, between the first and second food safety orders, we have made a decision to prohibit all edible oils from Taiwan, whether they are from animal or plant origin. And at that stage, we had worked with the industry and the trade and to seal the products and stopped their sale. When we issued a third food safety order, well, by then, a vast majority, most of the such oil products were not on the market. And why we issued the second and third orders, we just wanted to make sure that we had the power to stop the sale and recall the products. And the distributors know that they were breaking the law if they are still selling such products. With regard to upholding or safeguarding people's safety, and actually such products were not found on the market, actually. I haven't finished, Dr. Wong. So that's why we for the second and third orders, we didn't publish a list of the traders involved. There have been suggestions made or comments on the list after the first order, and that we have taken on board too. You said that you didn't publicize a list because there were not many such products. Dr. Eleanor Wong, you've gone over time. Dr. Wong, Vice Chairman, the lot incident and has been here, and on the 29th of October, I raised an urgent question at the LegCo, and much of it, of the things that need to be said have been said. You've raised new points which make me worry. I share the same views as Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. For the 4 large exporters, 1 of them was suspected of fraudulent acts, and 3 of them have made mistakes in their declaration. So you shouldn't take the matter lightly, saying that they have made mistakes in declaration, or they did they do it deliberately? I think the government must look into it. Are there any people who were engaged in illegal acts or what? So please follow up on that front. Second, talking about food safety, we know that the incident originated in Taiwan, and Taiwan has prohibited sale of certain food products or record them. And we were acting a few days behind of the incident. So perhaps the Secretary can tell us how many days of delay were there. Now, in the future, if similar incidents happen in the future, how can we do better? Can we take the products from the shelf, off the shelf earlier, so that people's safety can be safeguarded? And I think, please respond to these 2 points. First question, I'll defer to the colleague from the customs to provide information. Second question, the Center for Food Safety has been doing a lot of work, and we've been actually trying to act in anticipation of what will happen. If we just waited from Taiwan to give us information on the kind of products which are problematic, then we will be acting too late. So you can see that after the first food safety order has been issued, and before the second order was issued, we made an important decision, and we put a ban across all Taiwan lots and all products. And for those products which have been imported, they have been sealed. We hadn't waited until Taiwan gave us the information on the batches of products which are problematic. We've done all these before we received such information from Taiwan. So I totally agree with the Deputy Chairman. And if we have reasons to believe that there is a problem with all the products, then we don't have to wait for the information from the place of origin of the products to give us information on the batch number. We just made the decision well in advance of that. Please be quick. Let me try to explain the customs declaration system in Hong Kong. We try to collect trade information so that we can compile figures on total exports and total imports, and that is used for macro analysis. And so, Mr. Chen, please supply us the information in paper later on. We don't have the time. Dr. Low Wai Kwok, the Hong Kong Quality Assurance body is now drawing up a plan for registration for all products, and they are now doing that. Well, before the plan has been completed, we saw this incident of substandard lot. I am the chairman of that body, I must declare. This plan or scheme is a voluntary scheme, and the aim is to, through that scheme, identify the source of the waste oil and also try to enhance the traceability of waste oil. And we encourage the members to recycle and reuse waste oil. There are several aspects of the scheme, waste oil recyclers and also waste oil handling operators. This is a voluntary scheme, and we hope to promote the scheme among the trade. And the pilot scheme was very much welcomed by the trade, and we will try to learn from the pilot scheme with a view to launching a full-fledged scheme later on. Well, let's look at the real situation within the trade. Some recyclers and collectors of waste oil are complaining that costs are going up. The waste oil is getting more costly, and if they are really to recycle and collect this waste oil, they can really afford the high price. And well, if the waste oil can be turned into edible oil, then they will be able to make their business work. I mean, is the administration in the know about this, or is the customs know about this kind of practice? I welcome the sort of scheme mentioned by Dr. Low. Well, this is in line with what we are planning to do. Once we've got this accreditation scheme, we will be able to work together with the food industry to arrange for the waste oil to be delivered to the recyclers. Earlier, we made announcements on certain proposals, which include regulating oil imported and imported to Hong Kong, exported from Hong Kong. So the scheme is also in line with that type of regulatory framework. If we have that scheme, then waste oil will not be used illegally or turned illegally into edible oil for human consumption. If we implement our proposals, this will not happen, I believe. What about the existing market situation? Is it that case that the waste oil's prices are getting higher and higher? Well, he would not be able to answer that question because he's not from that field. If there is any illegal act, we would definitely refer the case to the law enforcement bodies. Mr. Raymond Chen. I would also like to follow up on the question of list of traders who may have distributed or used affected products. After the first order is issued, that such a list was announced. Well, there was contention on that issue. Some people say that the list has been announced too late, and some others said that their names should not be disclosed. So is it the case that the administration thinks that for the first list to be announced, you think that it is not that appropriate? And in paragraph 9, the government says that since not many such products are on the market, so there is no need to have a list. Now, the second order has just expired. How many products have you recalled? And for the third order, is it the case that you don't expect that any products will be recalled? Have you conducted a review on the name and shame approach? Would you be taking into consideration other factors in using that approach? Secretary, some of the questions have to do with the results of the recall after the orders have been issued. Dr. Tam, thank you, Mr. Chan, for your question. The second safety order has to do with products from Qingyi and Tingxin. We've recorded a total of 207 tons of oils and then 1.9 tons of related products. Thank you, Chairman. I can say one more thing for Mr. Chan's reference. In the period between the first and the second order, we made a decision to prohibit the export or the import of oil from Taiwan, whether they are from animal or plant origin. And then we followed up with sealing the products. And we're doing it just as a precautionary measure. And the products covered are much more than the batches of products announced, problematic products announced by Taiwan. So if under that circumstance, and we again announce a list of the traders, then traders with food products which are not problematic may also be included. But then we needed a wider net to, so to speak, to protect Hong Kong people's safety. So we are not making the list at that time. Well, in the first round, didn't you have the same worry? But then for the first round, we actually received specific information from Taiwan on the problematic batches of products of Changun. But for the second round, they couldn't be able to provide a similar information. At first, we received the news that only substandard lots were involved, and then later we received the news that lots of animal and plant origin may also be problematic.
其實大家都知道。
Women Wong, well, exports turned into domestic sales. Now, in the case of Shamshuipo, they really took stern action. Now, we are trying to block the export of products from Hong Kong, is it right? Hong Kong exports the lard, right? And then they use the lard and the food is manufactured and come back to Hong Kong. We don't rule out the possibility that some of the lard or oil comes from Hong Kong, but it's not the entirety. Well, I didn't say it's the entirety. Now, which part is from Hong Kong? We have to review this. You close the doors to all exports from Taiwan. Fine. You support the approach, right? So how do you deal with those from Hong Kong? You say that you arrested the persons responsible at the traders. Well, it's now still in investigation stage, and we don't know the outcome yet. Now, here we look at the customs declarations of the exporters. At customs, they do not do the tracing. Are you asking whether Hong Kong people use the oil and sold them in Hong Kong? Now, some of the oil went to Taiwan and you have to plug the loophole. Now, if you use the non-edible oils in Hong Kong, and what impact does that have on Hong Kong itself? You have to find out. Two of our proposals relate to Mr. Wong's question. Firstly, in the future, we will ask all edible oils exported from Hong Kong to be accompanied by official certification. Now, at the time, people didn't get such certification, right? Can you let him answer, please? Now, all such edible oils to be exported in the future must have official certification. Secondly, some of the oils generated by our own restaurants, the waste oils, in future there should be a certification scheme to see which is to be recycled, and in the future only the oils from these certified suppliers can be supplied. Now, well, people were talking about gutter oil a long time ago, and then the law was amended. Sorry, your time is up. I have drawn the line. Two members have raised their hands, Kwok Ka-ki and N Chang, and also I haven't spoken. I need to speak on this issue. So 3 minutes each. I will cut you off right on 3 minutes. Kwok Ka-ki, Dr. Kwok. Now, in the response by the government, I'd like to ask on 2 points. First, on para 10, concerning Teng Xin and Cheng Yi, the government said that there were 207 tons recalled and 1.7 tons of food products. Is that the entirety? If not, why didn't you disclose it? Now, to safeguard the public, it's essential to provide the information. Unless you have firm evidence to show that the 207 tons and 1.7 tons are already the entirety of the problem products by Teng Xin and Cheng Yi. Otherwise, this is not acceptable. This is different from the first order. And secondly, in the document in para 19, it says that there are at least two traders made incorrect declarations. Now, we don't know whether they did it intentionally or not. Now, if they made the declarations at customs, why is it that they didn't follow the trade description ordinance? Why weren't prosecutions made on the basis of the trade description ordinance? Now, the businesses may have misled people, including overseas buyers. Now, if the government doesn't take action, is it some kind of condoning that action? Now, also on the tests on the imported oils, you said oil products from there are oil products from Taiwan and Korea under the scheme. Are there other places covered too, or the other places? Now, I explained that regarding the first food safety order, is based on information supplied by Taiwan on the problem batches from Changguan, and we learned the production dates, so we are able to find out which were the problem batches of lard, and so we disclosed the list in respect of those batches. So if the traders felt that they bought the oil not for cooking, at least they did buy the oil. And starting with the second batch, now given the developments in Taiwan, by the second or third, basically there has been no information supplied on the batches and dates of production in question. So in order to safeguard the food safety of Hong Kong people, we had no alternative but to prohibit all Taiwanese edible lard imports into Hong Kong. Now, so if we prohibit all the products from these two Taiwanese companies, if we recall all those products, but some of them may not be faulty, and if we disclose such a list, then some of the restaurants or businesses, they may have purchased oil that are not problematic. Please hasten in your reply. We can only prove the batches at fault only based on information from the source. So if we do not have the information, it's problematic to announce such a list. And Chen. Now recently, well actually, the districts are concerned primarily not about occupation or whatever, but about cooking oils, gutter oil, etc. 2 weeks ago, I went to LegCo Estate in Shamshuipo at the residents' meeting, and the elderly people told me that we don't know what it is, but can you tell Mr. Koh to find ways so that we won't consume food products made of gutter oil? So can the secretary please respond how the people can be reassured? Now, we can only tell the people that if the source countries can provide the pertinent information on the problem batches, then we can recall all those products in connection with those batches. But since they haven't been able to provide information, we have broadened the net for the purpose of safeguarding the food safety of the Hong Kong public. So I hope the people can understand that we have taken the extra step to prohibit imports of all imports that might be at fault. So the mainland gutter oil came to Hong Kong. Now in our proposal, we have been very strict. We don't want to see locally produced waste oil being used locally, and all exports have to be certified, and in the future all imports from outside of Hong Kong, all edible oils, will be subject to risk assessment, and we may require official certification of safety before they can be imported. Will you step up controls and step up the penalties? Now, given what I said earlier and at the last meeting, a lot of this has to be done through legislation. And at the time of legislation, we will consider whether the penalties proposed are suitable at suitable levels. And Cheng, you have taken up 3 minutes already. So I have to talk to you after the meeting. Now you have said that you will take only 1 minute. Well, I'm now using my time. Now, just members mentioned my support. Now, Mr. Lo Wai Kwok mentioned the QA. Now, QAA. Now, I must declare interest that I talked to the QAA. Now, my company recycles waste oil for biodiesel production. So, we were the first to join the certification scheme. Now, I wouldn't exceed 1.5 minutes. And you have responded rather slowly. And now, for those 2 safety orders, but for which you did not disclose the downstream list of traders, I support that approach. Now, I didn't object to it. I just merely questioned whether the disclosure of that list will hasten the pace of recall. There should be a mechanism to ensure total recall of such products. Now we need a balance between so that the public will not continue to be scared about going to patronize these restaurants. Now, many of these restaurants were blamed. Now, why didn't you tell us you were using such waste oils? The government has an obligation to spell out that not many restaurants used such oils because lard is used in only a very small proportion of foods and in small quantities. Now, in the past 1 to 2 months, I visited many restaurants and asked them whether they use Taiwanese oils. Now, actually, we already stopped using any oil from Taiwan because we fear the media making a lot out of it. Now, on the castor oil, the DNA shouldn't be just related to pigs.
當然，如果有人賣一隻油，佢話我係花生油，然後有豬牛羊雞鵝鴨。
Actually, it relates to other products too. Now, you should study whether you will prosecute if you find the DNA of cows, sheep, or whatever. End of meeting.